Hey guys, Money with Yumi here, where I talk about anything and everything related to money and how to grow your wealth. I've been meaning to make this somewhat sensitive, a little controversial video for some time now because not a lot of people are talking about it, so maybe it's time for me to shed some light onto it. Before I begin this video, I have to put a disclaimer out there that this video contains some stereotypes and generalization about all three major races in Singapore that is based from my experience growing up in Singapore or stories from my friends. That is not meant to criticize any particular race, but to provide a clearer picture of some of the obstacles you'll face in your pursuit for financial freedom. So hopefully I don't offend anybody with this video. And if somehow I do offend you, I do apologize in advance and feel free to close this video at any point of time. And why am I making this video? Here's the ugly truth. Most Singaporeans, most humans are judgmental as okay? Some of us even judge our own race. I've seen Americans do it, like how every Asian on this planet is supposed to be good at math. So it's not just happening in Singapore. Let's start with some of the stereotypes of the different races in Singapore, the good and the bad. And I do not necessarily agree with this table because it does contain some biasness. But first up, we have the Chinese. Hardworking, kiasu, rude, loud, eats everything, aliens, abings, middle to high income, liberal, money-minded, materialistic. For the Malays, we have lazy, happy-go-lucky, chill, YOLO with installments, smokes a lot, minas, mamuts, low to middle income, conservative, family-oriented. For the Indians, we have smart, tech-savvy, unhygienic, rowdy, drinks a lot, and I don't know what the Indian version is, middle to high income, conservative to liberal, and men are absent from family because they're always going out. Do you agree or disagree with these stereotypes? Let me know in the comments below. In a lot of developed and developing countries, wealth disparity is a huge issue. I don't necessarily see it as a problem, but it is an issue. Just based on probability and statistics, the majority race tend to have a bigger chunk of the wealth pie. If you take a look at US data, nearly 96.1% of the 1.2 million households in the top 1% by income were white, and whites represent only 57.8% of the population in the US. Let's take a look at Forbes' top 50 richest people in Singapore. They are predominantly foreigners, Singaporean Chinese, or Indians. I don't see any Malays on this list. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Singapore's population comprised of 75.9% Chinese, 15% Malays, and 7.5% Indians. The remaining 1.6% are classified as others. So Malays are double the population of Indians, but not one of them are on the list. Not one, which is really interesting. I think it's partly due to values and culture. Like for example, in the past, Malays were not raised to put a huge emphasis on higher education or money. And once they finish basic education, they tend to go into the workforce to help out the family and lessen the burden. So one could say that they're more family-oriented, which is not necessarily a bad thing. According to the census of 2020, Malays in particular are marginalized. Just 11% of Malays went to university compared with 35% of Chinese and 41% of Indians. The median Malay household income is $5,700 compared with $8,000 for Chinese and $8,500 for Indians. So on average, Indians make the most, followed by the Chinese and then the Malays. And I wish they included the others into this statistic. So why then can the Indians, who only make up 7.5% of the population, make more money than the other races? That's something for us to think about. The burning question here is, does your race affect your wealth in Singapore? Based on the statistics I just mentioned, it does seem evident that race affects wealth. But why? I'm going to give you 3 hypotheses on why your race may affect your wealth. The first is upbringing and culture. Your family upbringing might influence your perspective on money. For example, some Chinese equate success to wealth. If you have a high-paying job, you're successful. If you don't, you're a failure. But one could argue that success is not based on monetary value. Malays tend to prioritize family relationships than pursuing materialistic things. They tend to start a family earlier and have more kids than other races. So rather than having 3, 4 jobs to increase income. They would rather spend that extra time they have with their children or family, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that as long as they are happy, because there are a lot of rich people who are still unhappy. So wealth does not buy you happiness, that's for sure. Just know that sometimes your culture and upbringing might be the reason why you have less or more wealth than other races. 2. Education and career choice. Chinese is the majority race in Singapore, so naturally there are more elite Chinese schools than elite mixed schools, and the elite schools get more funding from the Singapore government than the neighborhood schools. And in the elite schools, only a handful of them are from the minority races. And schools like MGS, CHIJ, ACS have very few Malays enrolled in them because they are, after all, a Methodist school, and some Malay parents are not comfortable sending their children there. But one may argue that going to a good school is important because it gives you more skills and knowledge to succeed in life. It doesn't guarantee success, but it increases your odds at success. That is why there are so many kiasu parents in Singapore who want their kids to enter good schools. When it comes to career, Indians are more likely to be doctors, engineers, lawyers, programmers, etc. Indians make up most of the tech industry in the world, and the tech industry is known to pay really well, 6 figures for fresh grads. And based on generalization, a Chinese family or an Indian family is more likely to encourage their children to invest their money, more so than a Malay family who might just tell their children to save instead. So maybe this is the reason why they have more money than other ethnic groups. And this applies to all races. If you were not raised to think that having a good career is important or having money is important, what are the chances that you're gonna think that having money is important? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's about priorities. Ask yourself, what makes you happy? Third, opportunities. There is undeniably this Chinese privilege in Singapore, especially when it comes to jobs. China is the world's second largest economy and the largest economy in Asia, and many businesses in Singapore deal with China. A lot of MNCs set up headquarters in Singapore to target the Chinese market, so knowing the Chinese language is advantageous when you're applying for jobs. I've known several Malay and Indian friends who learned Chinese as a third language growing up, and that benefited them as an adult. But if you're a minority who doesn't speak Chinese, then you'll have lesser job opportunities. And even if a minority is equally as qualified as the majority, an employer might offer lesser wage to the minority versus the majority, like a Malay versus a Chinese, for example. In 2019, Peter Chu of James Cook University found that Chinese Singaporean undergraduates rated Malay job applicants as less competent than equally qualified Chinese applicants and recommended lower salaries. Yeah, this is something the Singapore government should address, along with jobs and housing discrimination. If you have seen ads online regarding jobs and housing, it's disgusting. It really sickens me as a Singaporean that certain jobs which does not require the Chinese language we use would blatantly say Chinese only, not just Chinese preferred, Chinese only. Or ask the applicants if they're Chinese is basically saying to your face, like, if you're not a Chinese, don't fucking apply. Isn't this open discrimination? Unless the job requires you to write and speak in Chinese, which you would then use Chinese language proficiency required, then there's absolutely no reason why a company can be allowed to write that. Until today, I don't understand why there's no anti-discrimination law in Singapore, like housing. Not wanting to rent to a certain race, that's discrimination. A lot of Singaporean Chinese landlords do not want to rent to the Indian race because they fear that their property is going to smell like curry. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Oh my gosh, so speechless. Like, what about the Chinese who cook pig intestines? Those shit stink. For real. Like, for my rental property in Singapore, I rent to foreigners, not once to a local. I think at my price point, not many Singaporeans would want to spend that kind of money each month on rent. And you know, in the US, you can sue your landlord or company for discriminating against your skin color. And as long as your tenant pays on time and is generally a good tenant, then your duty as a landlord is to be colorblind. Same goes for jobs. If you can prove yourself with your skills in the company, then your race should not matter. So what can you do to get ahead? It depends on whether you're comfortable with where you are right now or you want to change the direction of your career. Singapore is a competitive society and you'll need to constantly learn new skills so that you can progress your career and keep up with your peers. If I'm a minority parent, I'll make sure my child doesn't lag behind by doing 2 things. learn the Chinese language and coding. And if I'm a Chinese parent, then I'll have my child learn a different third language. That way they're equipped with more skills for the future. And if you're a minority in Singapore and hearing me as a majority speak about race, you might think I've never experienced life as a minority. But guys, I'm in freaking America, the country that has been plagued with so many anti-Asian hate recently that I'm so thankful I am Singaporean. At the end of the day, you choose what you want to feel, and for me, I choose to be colorblind. I refuse to be at a disadvantage because of my race, and I believe that no one should feel at a disadvantage because of their race. I'm a minority in America, so what? I have never once felt that white people were of a superior race. I felt like I was equals as human beings. Once again, it's about the mindset. If you have that drive and motivation which is cultivated over the years and not defined by your skin color, then you shouldn't use your race as an excuse for any shortcomings that you may have. Think about how you can use your race and your skills to your advantage. For example, if you're fluent in Chinese, Malay, or Tamil, tutor that language as a side hustle. Teach online. Offer translation services, or if you're good at baking, do that as a side hustle. See what skills you're currently lacking to advance yourself in your current career. If you know you might get a promotion by learning a certain skill, then do it. Don't be jealous or whine about how other people are getting higher paying jobs or having more money when you yourself are not doing anything to enable yourself to get there. There are opportunities out there, you just have to find and fight for it. This applies to all races. If you like this video, please destroy the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell icon so you get notified whenever I post a new video. This will really help with the YouTube algorithm. Let me know your thoughts on this issue. And if you would like me to make a video about social class which takes precedence compared to race, leave me a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you again next time.